Welcome, everybody. My name is Jeff Green, president of Green Team Realty. Thank you for joining us for the December 2020 housing market update. We've got a great panel lined up for you and a good slide deck here of good information. So let's jump right into it. So what a year it's been. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. I think, you know, for us in the real estate industry, we've certainly been very blessed to have had a very robust, strong business. And you know, I being an entrepreneur for so many years now, my heart literally goes out to those who have lost their businesses or have seen major declines in their businesses. And as you're about to see, the real estate industry has done very well this year. So, you know, let's get into it. So it's been a V-shaped recovery for sure in the housing market. You know, and it continues its ascent. When you take a look at this chart here produced by Realtor.com, it judges four components: demand, supply, price, and time on market. Everything has come back in the right direction and it continues to go up. So the market is zooming and continues to do so. There's no sign of impending foreclosure increases. As you can see here, the number of mortgages in active forbearances continues to decrease. Really dropped off in October and has just been steadily decreasing and continues to kind of head in that direction. So the next question is, are we headed towards a bubble? Are prices going up too fast? That's really the next big discussion here. And when you take a look at annual house price appreciation rates, you can see since 1991, it's been 3.8%, but since 2012, it's been 6.1%. Now, for an entrepreneur a real estate entrepreneur that lived through the Great Recession, and in our area in particular, it took 8 years to come back around. There was a slide in price, home price, and activity from 2008 through 2016. So for me, it's understandable why this number would be, you know, so much higher than that, because it was such a downturn. You know, it was a sharp decline. So here is what it would look like with an annualized 3.8% return to today inside 2020. But here's an overlay of what the actuals are versus historic appreciation. And as you can see, we're a pretty good mark above where historic price appreciation would have landed us if you had gone from 2000 to today at a 3.8% run. So as you can see, it was way up in 2005, 2006. It came way down, and it's you know, been jogging back up. But this has been a real burst this year, largely because of the pandemic and everything that it's created. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I think as things normalize, we're going to see activity go down, but we'll see. Let's keep talking here. So really, you know, the story now is just supply and demand, you know, and the lack of supply. As you can see, ever since 2000 and really, what's the peak here? The middle of 2011, this latest peak, it just started to, you know, decline. This is, you know, the supply of inventory. So really, it's just a natural thing, right? Supply and demand, economics 101. The less supply you have, the higher the demand, pricing goes up, right? And that's exactly where we're at. The supply has just continued to decrease while the demand has risen, and that is just really pushing prices. So this is a very important statement from Lawrence Yun. I read this a few times and I wanted to read it all to you. Such a frenzy of activity, reminiscent of 2006, raises questions about a bubble and the potential for a painful crash. The answer, there's no comparison. Back in 2006, dubious adjustable rate mortgages taxed many buyers' budgets. Some loans didn't even require income documentation. Very true. Not a lot of no-doc loans right now. Today, buyers are taking out 30-year fixed rate mortgages. 14 years ago, there were about 3.8 million listed homes for sale. That's important to note. 3.8 million listed homes for sale. And builders were putting up about 2 million new units. Now, inventory is only 1.5, less than half of what it was back then. And home builders were underproducing, are underproducing relative to historic averages. So to me, that's the key, right? There were, back in 2006, there was 3.8 million homes listed for sale and 2 million new construction units coming online, when right now there's only 1.5. That's a stark comparison. So that, I think that's the reason why you're seeing such an ascension in the asset pricing in the housing market update. So The other good news is that in general, homeowners can afford to pay their mortgage, right? So this is a look at affordability, right? Debt service ratios as a percentage of disposable income. And it's basically saying that where people are right now with their disposable income compared to what they have in terms of a mortgage payment is less of a percentage than it was back in even 2011, or 2012. You can see it's been a sharp decline ever since then. So that's good news. That means that people can afford to pay the mortgages that they have, and that's a really good thing. So taking a look ahead, how does all this mix into where things are headed? So mortgage rates, right now, the forecasts are they're going to remain low. There doesn't really seem to be any sort of consensus that rates are going to come up anytime soon, at least in the next 12 months. And as far as home prices, all of the major, players in the housing market, as far as data collection goes, they're all predicting things to increase. The lowest of which is CoreLogic at 1.9%. So basically, they're saying everything's on the up and up. I wanted to mention before I forget that the new winter 2021 buyer and seller guides are available on our website. You can go to the homepage, just scroll down halfway to request your guide. There's a lot of good information that builds upon everything that we're talking about here today. Now let's check out the actual aggregate numbers, the hardcore stats here. So existing home sales on a national level. Things have been cruising all year long and they're pretty steady. I mean, this is a remarkable thing when you see every year over the last, I would say, decade or more has really trended downwards from August beyond. So this is really a remarkable thing that this line is jetting out straight. Now, a lot of it has to do with the fact that there was also this year, which never goes down during that time of year, is always going up because of seasonal fluctuations. So I think that, you replace this with that and you have a fairly steady year with maybe a little bit of an increase in terms of the number of homes sold. But when you take a look at national, we're going to also take a look at Orange County and Sussex. It's remarkable to see the price just sail. It's as if, a gust of wind came underneath and just took this line and it went off to the races. So certainly home sellers who have sold this year have gotten very good numbers for their assets. Months of supply of inventory, you can see it's just a plummeting effect with the inventory that's available. So that's continuing. So here's Orange County, a look there. Same idea, right? A downward trend in the spring, which we normally don't see, but yet a very strong trend in the fall, which we don't normally see either. So it kind of evens out when it's all said and done. Average sale price has been very strong in Orange County all year long, no doubt about that. Sussex County, much of the same, similar trend, although you didn't see a huge decline in the spring, but it certainly didn't jump up where it probably would have been, if we didn't have the pandemic situation. I'm sure that line would have been up here somewhere. But again, a very strong summer and fall season for Sussex County, and average price, again, this is a massive increase, Sussex County, but it did take a while, right? I mean, you take a look at, where 2019 was, it was kind of a mixed bag. It never really took off. So 2020 was going to be the years of price appreciation for Sussex. And I think that was exacerbated by the pandemic. So just some housekeeping items. We're actually going to dial back the time at which we run the housing market update to noon next month in January, on January 19, 2021. So that'll be the first housing market update of the new year. And of course, we want to wish everyone a happy holiday. So be sure to tune in for then. And in the meantime, let's get to our panel and get some feedback on what we just talked about. So I'm just going to kind of open the floor if anybody wants to just kind of jump in and make any statements about anything they just saw. Otherwise, I do have some individual questions for our panel. Why don't we introduce our panel real quick? I'm looking left to right, so we'll just go ahead and if I call your name, just wave. Pam Zachowski from Green Team New Jersey Realty. Hi, Pam. And let me change the gallery view here. Toni Kreusch from Green Team New York Realty. How you doing, Toni? Keren Gauvin, Green Team New York Realty. Keren Gonen, Green Team New York Realty as well. Michael Giannetto from Cross Country Mortgage. Welcome, Mike. Thanks everybody for being here. So does anybody want to just chime in with general comments about, the information that you just saw, or kind of where we are at with the market as a whole? Otherwise, I've got some specific questions. No one? All right, we've got a shy group today. We'll loosen them up in a little bit. All right, so Toni Kreusch, you're up first. Your mic is muted, just as a heads up. So if I'm sitting here watching and looking at this information from a buyer's perspective, I'm saying to myself, especially if I'm a first-time buyer, it might be a little bit daunting. Prices have come up so much. Inventory is so low, which means that it's going to be hard for me to find what I want. Should I just wait? Should I buy now? What should buyers be thinking about, Toni?
Well, I think that property values will continue to rise. So although it's a great time to sell, so will mortgage rates. I think they're going to creep up. Good for you if you have found a place, even if you've overpaid. But if you haven't yet found your dream home, but want to, I think now is the time to buy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess to piggyback off that, one thing a buyer, regardless, if you do not currently own a home, one thing you always have to factor in is your opportunity cost of not owning a home, right? So it means that you're paying rent, most likely, which means that by paying rent, you're not paying down a principal amount on a mortgage, or if you are blessed enough to be able to pay cash, you're unloading cash that you could have otherwise put into a home. So it's always best, it's always advisable to own a home if you can, if your circumstances allow for it. And I think that rates are just so low right now, that's really the key, right? Yeah, you're paying a premium on the asset price, but you're getting a heck of a deal on the financing end of it. That's my opinion. So let's talk about the flip side of that. Pam, I want to come to you. What about sellers? What should they be thinking right now? We're in the midst of the holidays. That's one factor, just time of year simply, but also timing in the market. You're seeing, like I said, it's almost as if a gust of wind came underneath that sales price line and it just took off and it's going. So if you're a seller, you're saying to yourself, well, why shouldn't I just wait another 6 months or a year? Maybe I can get another 10% on my asset. What would you say?
I would say, considering that the inventory is so depleted right now, especially now that we're heading into the holidays, I've seen a really slowdown of new properties coming on the market. I would say beginning of the year, that's when you should get your property on the market. I think prices will still continue to rise due to the inventory shortage. But I see right now, some of my clients are waiting until the first of the year to put their house in the market.
Yeah. But I guess, I think everyone on this call would agree that there's so much demand and so little inventory that even if someone put a deal on, a listing on Christmas Eve, they're probably going to get showings, maybe not Christmas Day, but the day after for sure. Like the market's that intense, right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, right now, anytime is a good time to list the property because the market is that in dire need of inventory. Okay. So Keren Gauvin, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I just want to make sure you didn't think I forgot about you sitting there. All right. So it's been a hard year for a lot of people, but also it's been hard for realtors. As good as the business has been, it's been a very challenging year, right? I know everybody's tired. I talk to lots of realtors all the time, being in the position that I'm in with Green Team. And I know that you guys are tired. It's been a long year. So what's been the greatest challenge for a realtor, and from your opinion, in 2020?
I think there was really I would say two components that kind of were happening at the same time. One, I think everyone, us in particular, we all had to kind of reinvent the way we work, the way we operate, our systems, our processes. And that was a constantly shifting landscape under our feet. So professionally, that was definitely difficult to navigate and stay on top of. And we had to be creative, and you had to kind of be a little bold and a little brave, I think, to kind of navigate successfully through that. And then, of course, the backdrop, the more important component, I think, that was going on for all of us and really everyone together, was that we were all going through, obviously, a pandemic together. There was a lot of us who had, maybe health emergencies or crisis or, our own personal family things that were going on. And we had to put that aside and really just be focused on our clients and on our, on our jobs, and be professional and, kind of balance those two. So
yeah, like homeschooling your kids in your car while you're showing properties, probably. I'm sure there were many realtors doing that.
exactly. I think, I think that
Good
was
thing for hot spotting from your phone, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. All right, so Keren, Gonen, what about predictions for 2021? Where do you see things heading in terms of the housing market in 21?
Well, since we are expecting mortgage rates to remain low, I do think that the market will remain strong. I do think that sellers that possibly had been more hesitant about listing their house, seeing the market and how we took off and kind of kept going in an upward direction, they'll see the sense in listing it, which will make our jobs a lot easier as buyer's agents. I think one of the other really good things to make note of is the fact that we're seeing more extended family purchases. So I'm getting a lot of buyers that are buying with their in-laws, the wife, the husband. We're looking at bigger houses, bigger purchases. And I would say the top tip in 2020 that buyers have learned is that using a good agent is so important, because with inventory being so low, you have to have someone who's going to go to bat for you and is going to think outside the box to make sure you get the house that you want. So I think 2021 will be a very strong year. I think we'll still continue to climb as far as sales. The one thing we have to think about is the fact that people that are coming here, for instance, in Sussex County and also in Orange, they're coming out of the city. So they're used to paying a lot more money for real estate compared to what we have to offer here. So if for local realtors in Sussex, we were used to making sales in the 200,000s, now we're doing sales of 500,000 because our buyer profile has changed. We have people that are paying $9,000 in rent coming out of the city, whereas for $9,000 in New Jersey, you get a mansion size of a house. It's not even a house, it's like a commune. That's how big the difference is compared to where they're coming from.
Yeah, good point. One thing that just elicited a thought in my mind was, you said the importance of an agent, and it's been interesting for me over the last 15 years and, growing up in this industry, literally over the last, 40 plus years of my life, my parents being brokers since the day I was born. There's been this massive adoption of technology and this thought that, technology is going to do away with the real estate agent. And I think that this year in particular has shown how false that premise really is. I've been saying for years, the biggest pressure in the industry is on the brokers, guys like me, right? The brokers are under siege. Agents are never going away. It is way too big of a transaction, way too complex of a transaction, way too important of a transaction. So many little things can go wrong if you are not led by a really great agent. And it's interesting to see what's been going on with all of these iBuyers that are out there now. Their businesses have really plummeted this year, believe it or not. Their number of transactions are way down, so on and so forth. So I think that's proof positive that, we humans really need a good agent to do the right real estate transaction. So Mike, your mic is unmuted there, Michael Giannetto. Man, I tell you, that beard looks good on you, man. I like that look, Mike.
I've been called Wooly Willy a few times. The thing with the magnet with the hair.
You look more distinguished. I like it. So keep it going. I don't have enough facial hair to really grow a full beard, so this is all I can get. So Mike, let's talk mortgages a little bit. It's been a rocking year for you guys. I'm sure it's been everybody setting personal records I can't imagine the amount of refi going on in addition to an unbelievable purchase market as well. So I assume that you agree that rates are going to remain low in 2021.
I do. The predictions are that they will stay low into 2022 in the 3% range. So we're below, hopefully. which leads to more purchasing power for people.
Yeah.
You know.
So, all right. So everybody thinks, including you, including me, that rates will remain low. But what's the risk? Like, what could change that from happening? I mean, this time last year, all the economists were predicting a monster economic year in 2020. The U.S. economy was just absolutely flying, and then we got hit with a pandemic. Now that boded well for our industry and for the tech industry, but a lot of others have been ravaged. So is there anything that could possibly be brewing that may change that?
I think inflation is the only thing that will possibly be the game changer. Inflation's low right now. They had an uptick, but if all these things that as a result of the pandemic, come to fruition that they're mentioning, inflation could raise really quickly. And
right.
And I think that's really the game changer that will change the entire market.
Right. Yeah, and I think the reality, Mike, is that could happen. I mean, there's been all of this money printed, all this quantitative easing happening. It's almost to the point where it's like, how could it not happen, right? Inflation's got to set in at some point.
Yeah, I agree, but they're also talking about more quantitative easing.
Right.
And we know that the employment situation is not great right now because of all the decimation from the pandemic. I think that's really what's going to keep everything a little lower, unfortunately, on the backs of those people that have lost their jobs and their income. So, look, disfortunately, where we are, we're a little more insulated than the rest of the country because of the metro area that we're in.
Right.
So I think we have a little bit of a different story, but I think we're going to be pretty safe throughout this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we have a good year ahead as far as the housing market goes. 2 years from now, too far for me to think.
You and me both. I do want to mention something that Keren said about the right person, the right real estate agent. I think it's important for the right mortgage person too, that when that pre-approval is in your hand and you're presenting it to a listing agent. I know I could countless amounts of deals this year that it was accepted because the listing agent knew who I was. And I think that's really important, coming from, some of the big name places that everybody knows their names that I won't mention, but it's somebody that's out in Illinois somewhere that they don't know what the outcome may be. So
yeah, I think we would all agree with that. We've been in the trenches, all of us, on deals, and it does help who the lender is. An agent advising their seller on which deal to take. And especially right now, you might have 10 offers in front of you, and they may be very similar. And the only thing that separates them is the character and the track record of the mortgage banker, which is key, because once that offer is accepted, and if there's a mortgage contingency on it, it all comes down to the mortgage.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the key.
Jeff, I just want to interject for just a moment. It's not just the listing agents that look at the mortgages and the company that it comes with. It's also the buyer's agents. So I can't tell you how many times I've had buyers come to me and say, I have a pre-qual with this company or that company. And I would say to them, you really want to consider who you're working with, because working with a local mortgage company will give us more leverage with the listing agent. Or why don't you try a mortgage lender that I've worked with in the past? Because I can call my rep at 8 o'clock at night and ask for an update. Whereas if you're working with a company in Illinois, just like Mike said, they're not picking up the phone at 8 o'clock at night. I know all of us agents, we work till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night because it's part of our job, but mortgage lenders are different, and you really need to choose wisely when you choose your lender.
Yeah, it's true.
Could not have said it
We
better
are the
myself.
grease on the wheels, folks. Doesn't mean that we're greasy or slippery. It just means that we keep the wheels turning.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing this year has taught us is that relationships are so important. I get a lot of buyers that say, oh, I worked with this person or that person, and they never picked up the phone. They never had any answers for me. They just disappeared on me. They didn't take me to a house, and the house was in attorney review the day after. So you have to make sure you're choosing the right person for you. And today, with all the technology, as you mentioned, you can Google people in 2 seconds and know who you're dealing with right on the spot. So you have to make the right decision as a buyer or a seller.
Okay. I agree. I agree. All right. I'm going to show our contact information for our panel because they're just so great. These are great people. I love them all. I've worked with all of these people for a very long time. We're all friends, local people, you know, people contributing to sports, this, that, the other thing. So these are the phone numbers and company names and whatnot of the people on this panel today. And I would encourage anyone who's thinking about buying or selling, or in Mike's case, refinancing, call one of the people on this screen. They're awesome. Any final comments from anybody before we wrap it up? Going once, going twice, 3 times, we're sold. All right, everybody, thanks so much for coming. It was fun to be here with everyone, and we'll see you at the next housing market update in 2021. See ya.